Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here is the baby born Jesus Christ right here. Talk about with the manger right here. You have right here is for Mary and Joseph, and then the birth of Christ right here. And we were like weren't toward it talking about for the holiday spirit of Christmas though. That you're like thinking is toward it. About what direction that the moon was facing, and then what direction that the star was facing. And then if we're talking about nearly 2,000 years ago, but talk about right here I say about the birth of Christ, and then you have right here is the 3D label right here for talk about for Jesus Christ right here, and along with the cross. But if anybody will ask me as to where that if you want to do something artistic, maybe with some crayons, is to where go ahead and draw in the details of what you think that Jesus looks like. And if anybody say even at the church they would ask you to do something like that, and like I say that our Savior Jesus Christ, and ask you is that if you can go ahead and do like a painting about what do you think Jesus looks like. And during the church activities, I know that the preacher would be talking about a number of things, verses of the Bible, and all that other stuff. But I do one or two that with anything about what you call artistic talent, that really that a lot of the stuff right here, which I went and worked on the computer, but a lot of the activities that they had. For me to work with up there at the church that I used to go to, that there would be like a lot of times it would be like maybe scrap pieces of paper, or just coloring activities that they would have me doing. And if it was involved with the shepherd, or maybe with they say that main that talk about the birth of Christ. And so the way I think about it too, that I'm sure most of us can also remember the Romans. The Romans, the guys with you say the arm, they say that the suits and all that. I'm like, that I can remember that going to those events, the plays and stuff like that. And I can remember a couple of times too that it was during those Christmas night, a couple of times. I think it was between December the 15th through the 20th, something like that. That it was about. That they would have an event up there for Journey to Bethlehem over there at the Harvester Church, here in Missouri. St. Charles, Missouri was, but I can remember that they would have it to where that a big line of people, and they would hand out hot chocolate to everybody just to make sure that everybody kept warm, because I know that I would say at least every year that I would say at least 2 or more than 2,500 or so people, at least 3,000 people would come to that event. And then they would they would we would all get in groups and then go follow the trail and all that other stuff that was going on up there at the church. But I can just remember them like that if anybody would ask, it's like to go ahead and draw a picture of what Jesus looks like, and like one or two word it the whole spirit about that tradition about giving, no. But really that about the birth of Christ right here, that I do one or two that really that any amount of work that an artist gives to the portrait right here of Jesus Christ, that at this background right here is supposed to be Jesus is like, if you're supposed to give like any sort of theme, color theme or anything. So it seems like anybody who's going to be looking at this artistic talent right here is maybe going to be asking all kind, a number of questions actually. And one of those it's like would be is toward it that with what's the star all about and what's the moon all about. And that is that what I heard that the star, I'm like that. Whenever you're looking up at the sky, does that kind of give you a clear idea about what to name a child after they're born, or if it's just like maybe the location or some sort? But really though, that whenever we read through our Bible and thinking is that that's the source of stuff that maybe that we learned from that happened those years ago about that star that the Mary and Joseph, I guess the star that represents something in even though if it's shining from space. But let's just say that the spirit of Christmas, though, if there are some certain stars, that are only visible in space, maybe only during the holidays. So let's just say that if anybody will want to that, well, what does it usually mean? Maybe that if you want to use your imagination and think as to where that there's going to be a star visible, it's going to show like a type of glowing light, green light right here, and yeah, that this right here will be a print right here of a star. And I'm like, yeah, I did not include a yellow, but you got right there is a star right there. But with that star, it's only visible to you for the things that maybe that you can see that happen, like to honor for the spirit of Christmas. And then I also want to talk about right here is the black crayon right here, as I know that that a lot of time back when I was young that do I remember one crayon that got used up most of the time, and I think the red and then the orange, one of those colors that got used most of the time. But it was not really too much the black, or if anything, that the black will be used, kind of spiral over. If anybody will warrant to it, that if you're going to be working with colors, and then you may want to pick your favorite color and which one was considered to be your favorite. But you have right here is for Jesus Christ right here. And so how many of us are going to maybe think that to her and do something creative in like any sorts of 3D effects right here? And thinking as to where that you want to go ahead and maybe you'll draw like the shadows right here for the C right here. And then I go ahead and I draw the H right there. And so just thinking that, especially around the Christmas tree, that how many of us are going to maybe see a Christmas ornament that's going to maybe include like maybe some shadow, snow also, and half the time that you want to wear that, really, that how come, we don't see very much snow, of course, in some of these other photographs, we've seen in the Bible, you want to wear that, a lot of the time, a lot of the Jesus pictures that you see, that you don't see very much snow. And you would think that, the stars, if it got cold enough out there in space, that there would be just a little bit of ice and snow, containment on the stars, but really, according to the study of science, it's like really about the birth of Christ, as well as a study about what scientists think, what scientists discover about as to where if there was snowfall, really in back nearly 2,000 or 3,000 or so years ago, if there was really any source of snowfall during that time. But have right there is like the H right there, and then the R. But I say for Jesus Christ, and so you likely want to, about how many of us can really draw a letter of an alphabet? How many of us can draw upside down? So you're like, say, put the C and then the R, that you only drew about maybe half the C right there. I'm going to go ahead and give that a little bit more right there. So yeah, that you got right there is for the shadows right there for Jesus Christ. But anyway, you got right there is the black, and then you have right here is see brown, and then the green. So yeah, that whenever you're going to be working a Jesus picture right here, that with the clothes and all that, and if anybody say that that they usually I guess you could say if you're going to be doing it, the activity, then I guess you're going to go ahead and work with whichever colors that you see are available. And like say that if that's really about what what Jesus, I'm like, if you're going to be drawing a painting of Jesus and thinking that whatever colors that you want to use and whichever colors that you have, you provided, and then we're able to come up with during the time. But let's just say that for any sorts of church activities, that just thinking about between Santa Claus and then the reindeer right here, but just the whole purpose about celebrating for the Christmas holidays, and talk about the birth of Christ, and but still though that with this artistic talent right here, that I can just remember that while I was in church, that do some number of sources of coloring activities, but still, that how often were they be impressive with the way that I went ahead and put the cross together, and like if anybody that wonders as to where that and I can remember one activity I did. I drew up the eagle. Actually, it was not about Christ; it was about the eagle. But sometimes not all my drawings, I don't think, had really anything to do with Jerusalem, and then the shepherds, and then the manger, Bethlehem. I'm like, so some of the work that I have done, I don't think really had anything to do with with the birth of Christ. But at least that I would mark something on there says Jesus loves you, and for all the religion, and then so something like that. But with my artistic talent right here, just showing right here, as I talk about what Jesus looks like, and I could probably say that, I know that that if anybody were to say, if you want to go ahead and draw a picture of what Jesus looks like, then maybe you can say is like to go ahead and maybe draw an example about the Romans, the Romans though. the big dudes, the Romans though, that you go ahead and draw a picture of them, and I can remember that whenever I went to those events those couple years ago, I was afraid of the Romans, because the Romans though, that you heard, they were basically they were considered to be the guards that the law during that time during Bethlehem, that they were considered to be the guards. So if you were trespassing, or if you were doing something wrong, and then knowing about what the Romans would do. But so yeah, that back whenever I was a kid and I was afraid of the Romans. And how many of us are going to say that back whenever you were a kid that you're going to be afraid of the Romans? And I say, you were not afraid of the animals, but you were afraid of the Romans. I'm like, yeah, I was not too afraid of the animals, but I was not, but everybody else, I'm like, that the Romans though, that the Romans were there, and so yeah, it seems like a lot of times that there was any kids that were there at the time, it seemed like that not too many of those kids would have their fits or misbehaving, because the Romans were there. So it's like, if anybody were to say that whenever the Romans are there, then that's whenever the kids are going to behave. And but still though, that you show them artistic talent to know about what Jesus looks like. And I could maybe say that go ahead and use the brown right here. It's an old crayon, but that just draw some color in some more details right there of what Jesus would look like. And so yeah, that do a little bit of color right there, and then with the eyebrows also. But talk about about the birth of Christ though, that a few times just thinking as to about the birth of Christ, about the star, or just about the special holiday tradition, But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.